a piece of music, as always. Love never ends. Indeed, that's Christ. His love has no end, the love of God. So, good morning. Welcome to Radio Maria Ireland. Thanks for your company. 11:15 here on a Wednesday morning, the 24th of March, and leading up to Palm Sunday, or Passion Sunday, this coming Sunday too. And the readings, of course, at Holy Mass, guiding and directing us in the ways of the inexorable arrest of Jesus and his being put to death, as he foretold, in fact, himself too. And so the reason of the shape of the liturgy is intended to direct us to that culminating moment, the high point really in our church year in the liturgical season, that is Passion Sunday, Palm Sunday, leading up to the sacred Triduum of Holy Thursday, Good Friday and Holy Saturday. And indeed, it is a source of deep sadness that we cannot celebrate that publicly together here in Ireland. And they can do in other countries and in the north of Ireland. So if you're living on the border in the north and within travelling distance and everything, then maybe that'll be possible. Perhaps there's reduced numbers, though, in churches. There may be restrictions, so something that might have to be taken into account. But it just, again, 2 years in a row, we're not able to celebrate Easter. Probably I'll miss the Chrism Mass again and the Easter Vigil. It's just a source of great sorrow for us. So let us use this. Let's not waste it, I suppose. That's been expressed by a number of people too. I think the Pope as well, in certain circumstances. Let's not waste the grace that can come from this, and maybe strive that little bit harder to unite ourselves with this liturgical moment in the Church's year, and unite ourselves with the suffering of Christ, who himself was abandoned by those closest to him, especially when he needed them most, who was left among the apostles but St. John. So we have a dear lesson to learn there, and I do hope indeed we can unite our suffering and our estrangement and our disorientation perhaps too from our faith back to the Lord. I'm hoping indeed that, please God, in time this will, nature has a way of kind of bringing things back around. It is that we were under persecution for so many years here in Ireland, and when the persecution was finally lifted, we saw a massive resurgence in faith practice, so much so that we had a new missionary wave off into the far off ends of the earth in the late 19th and early 20th century. And that was following years of persecution. Most extraordinary rebound, or a bounce back. So let's anticipate that, and let's keep the faith alive. If it is that the communities in those days were somehow isolated and working away under the radar and behind the scenes, and yet keeping their faith, Oliver Cromwell did his best to oust, indeed uproot, all traces of Catholicism from Ireland at the time. Yet the people clung to their rosary beads. He wrote of this himself. We have that as a historical record, that the Irish people who were resisting so much, faithful to their prayers, faithful to their rosary, they had nothing else. There was great poverty back then too. So if it is we're enduring a little taste of that ourselves, not to the extreme or to the awfulness and the awful extent indeed of our ancestors in faith, well, now it's our turn. It's our turn to preserve and hold fast to this faith for the coming generations, and indeed to use what tools are at our disposal to help continue this work of evangelization and catechesis and passing this faith along. And so thank you to all of you indeed who help us here to use this gift of the radio to reach many more souls. What a great blessing, extraordinary time. And it's the case that even more souls in a way are being reached than perhaps otherwise. We're seeing that phenomenon, and many parishes are saying that now that they've introduced webcams, people are tuning in and connecting in from parts of the world that would never maybe have heard of some of these places, or from their own diaspora, members of their parish community who have gone further afield and now they're connecting in. So the Lord doesn't close one door, but he opens another. And we can complain and moan and give out and do all kinds of things against the state and so on. I received a lovely poem. I might not share it with you if that's okay, but it has a little political undertone to it there, and I can understand where it's coming from, but it was a poem written with the very same sentiment in mind, really pleading that we get our churches back, is the way it's kind of put, I suppose. It's not as if our churches are taken away from us. It's not the case. We can go and pray. Churches are still open, and I encourage you to keep visiting your church. Don't become a stranger to your local church building. Visit the Lord there and pray there. But it's a poem pleading it to the government really to allow us return to the practice of our faith. And the bishops have been, declaring, they made that declaration, their statement from their Easter meeting, Easter gathering, for us to contact our local political representatives and make our case heard and make our feelings known. So there are avenues in which to do that. Our role here in Radio Maria Ireland is not of that nature. That's why, again, I thank you for the listener who sent in that poem. But that's not our role precisely here. And it's good to just recapitulate our understanding there. So we're not a radio that seeks to be antagonistic or to be controversial or confrontational or sensational in any shape, size or form. We're not at all afraid, certainly, of the current issues and the topics that are under debate and some of the more sensitive questions. I think it's very important to speak of these things, to share them, but always to cast the light of the gospel on these things and to look back at the broader picture. And the expression I like, to generate light rather than heat. So we could easily use the microphone, abuse the microphone, I suppose, to go on a rant, to go on a crusade, to go on a tirade of pointing fingers and blaming whoever we might like to blame. But that's misguided energy, that's misguided anger. And as you know, I've mentioned before, now is a timely moment to restate, in fact, that I see the role of Radio Maria. It is, in fact, our role. It's not really my opinion or mine to wield. I've been given this gift of the radio. I'm here for whatever time the bishop allows, but to help you on that faith journey. So our role, as I would certainly see it, is that of Our Lady, our Blessed Lady, at the foot of the cross. And here we are coming up to Holy Week, and we're certainly distressed and deprived of the divine life coming to us through Jesus in the Holy Eucharist. And here's Our Lady at the foot of the cross, witnessing her Son nailed and being cruelly put to death. And we too can join with her, as the holy women did, as St. John did, Joseph of Arimathea, his good followers. There's our role, there's our task. And what did Our Lady do there? And she would have been well justified again if she did want to take on and challenge the political authority, the Roman soldiers. And she could have invoked a legion of angels, just like Christ himself said. He could have prevented his capture by enrolling the help of angels to defend him. And one angel would have been enough. We read in sacred scripture time and again how people are overcome in the presence of angels. They possess a majesty and a power far beyond all human power. Talk about superpowers and all these things. Angels are creatures beyond our ken completely. Which is why we do not do well, I've mentioned this before too, to trivialize our devotion to the angels and to somehow treat them as good luck charms or trinkets or sort of almost like leprechauns. It's a terrible way to think of it. No, angels are very grave, responsible creatures of God who stand in God's presence and also at our side, and nothing can get in the way of our good angels. Even the devil has to submit. So here we are as Our Lady at the foot of the cross. She could well have pointed the finger and given out to all the civic authorities and blaming them and saying, you should have done this, or why didn't you do that, or again, who elected them? Well, they're tyrants, I suppose. They weren't elected, they were an invading force. So Our Lady, didn't she stood there in silence? Again, our Blessed Lady would have been well justified in tackling the church, if you like, or the religion, the Jewish high priest and the Pharisees and scribes. The Lord himself, indeed, was severe enough and outspoken enough, even in this morning's gospel, challenging too. You call Abraham your father, yet you don't love me. So measure up to that inconsistency and explain that to me. You want to, even as it is, you want to kill me, Jesus said to them. So the Lord wasn't afraid to challenge them and get them to change their way. And his was always the task of conversion. It's for us too, you see. We have to hear that and ask ourselves, am I doing the very same? So Our Lady could well have taken her role and her authority as Mother of the Divine Son of God to challenge the Church, or the Jewish authorities, the High Priest and so on, and would have been well justified to exercise righteous anger against all of them for the injustice that was going on in front of her innocent son. But no, that's not what she does. She stands there again in silent witness. I don't know if you've come across, we've had them here, I'm sure, those lovely Stations of the Cross, written from Our Blessed Lady's perspective. And I recommend for you, the stations this time of year particularly. People are very good. I always found that in the parish church. Go and make your stations privately in your parish church, and maybe do it ahead of Good Friday. And on that sorrowful journey around the stations, from Our Lady's perspective, I love to use that text as part of the celebration in the parish of the Station of the Cross. But the Holy Family Mission with Father Patrick Cal have done a lovely YouTube video of that, and the young people have dramatised the roles of Our Lady and Jesus with the cross and Pontius Pilate and so on. It's really nicely done. You can see it's amateur dramatics, as it were, but it's done with great taste and with great fervour and great sincerity. I was just looking at some of that video there the other day. I think Sarah sent it through to me. Very nice. Excuse me, and very tastefully done. And with that text of From Our Lady's perspective. And so from Our Blessed Lady's perspective at Calvary, that's, for me, how I envisage the role of Radio Maria. So, we have good listeners in touch wanting us to get on this soapbox or get on that soapbox, or, why don't you say this or why don't you engage with that? And we could very easily. But the trouble is, it would end up dividing people. Especially if we go down the road of politics. Because the minute you mention any politician, you've got division. Because there are those who will favour a particular politician, and then there will be those who don't, because they voted for somebody else or whatever. And whatever policies and so on, they will almost automatically be divisive. So that's simply just not our role. That's as a Radio Maria radio station. We leave those things in the care and custody of those who know best how to wield that civic and social activity. That's not simply our place, and so we're quite happy to remain apart from it, and indeed speak as we do, and as Bishop Fonzie certainly yesterday spoke in relation to the Dying with Dignity bill, which is in reality assisted suicide, and spoke indeed in the light of church teaching and the moral responsibility that we share towards one another and the dignity of each other. So that's a very important aspect indeed of what we seek to do. Again, not to be setting up anything in the way of divisiveness or attacking those who have responsibility or authority, but certainly maybe challenging the teaching or challenging what's being done, not the person. And that's what a good citizen will do anyway. Any good citizen will want to be discerning and ask all the right questions. And that's a duty we actually have as Christians too. And to allow the light of the gospel again through the practice of our Christianity in our daily normal activity and lives and occupations and professions and vocations to bear upon this society as a whole. That's our task and role. So there it is. It's just good to remind ourselves that the role of Radio Maria here is, again, not to be antagonistic, not to be divisive, not to be confrontational, except that always in the light of the gospel we grow to a deeper understanding of our faith, and we do so in all gentleness and without condemnation, and certainly without condoning sin. That would be completely, it wouldn't serve any purpose. It doesn't serve any purpose to condone evil or to turn a blind eye to evil. But there are ways of approaching questions like that which are difficult and fraught as they are, that Our Lady would instruct us, is that the right word, that Our Lady would model maybe for us. This is maybe what I'm thinking. So there, Our Lady at the foot of the cross is our role model for all we do here at Radio Mayo Ireland. So that's why we have to be discerning in what we bring to the microphone, and we have to allow our presenters the scope, to bring what they're presenting certainly to the microphone too, but to do it always as best we can in the spirit of Our Lady. You see, the flip side, if you turn that on its head a little bit, the danger otherwise is that we bring ourselves to the microphone and to the radio station, and it's about my opinion and venting my anger. And I've seen that, and I wonder, I just leave a little question mark there, if I may. There are some priests, and they're on YouTube, and they're very articulate, very good speakers, and fine preachers in their own right. And I've seen one or two from the States and one or two from Ireland. They kind of do the rounds on WhatsApp groups if you're in and all social media. And when I get time, I'd look in and dip in and watch one or two of these. And just very impressive, good public speakers. One that I remember was a priest in the States, and he just absolutely tore into the new Biden administration and the fact that President Biden, is, in name at least, a Catholic. And I just felt for myself, I just had a question. Was this using the pulpit for... And it seemed to me that he was giving vent to his own frustration. That's what came across to me. And what he had to say was very interesting and very informed and informative. And you come away from it thinking afresh about the whole approach to politics and so on. However, and this would be my difficulty, again, who is this serving exactly? Is this serving the gospel? Was it, was he generating a lot of heat, which seemed to me to be the case? And again, I leave it open. I'm not here in judgment or anything, but I just question the efficacy of that in the long term. If it is that I'm going to get that impassioned and fired up about this particular thing, well then, next Sunday then do I have to get all fired up and impassioned about the next issue that's a grave injustice? And then what am I left with then? What kind of a standard am I setting? And how can I, going forward then, draw people who might otherwise be marginalised or, have gone along with the crowd a little bit? How do we win such souls back along? And I think, and again, here's my understanding of the role here of Radio Maria. It's a long-term, it's a marathon we're running. That you could get all hot and bothered about this, that, or the next thing, and generate a great deal of heat and sensation and maybe win some over. But I doubt it. I doubt in the long run it would be efficacious. And I can understand, I do, honestly, I understand completely. I suffer the same frustrations myself. You'd like to get up on the soapbox and wield the rolling pin and say, listen, there are moments. And maybe there's a time when that should be done too. But I really sincerely believe that this Radio Maria is not an instrument of that sort. It's not a blunt instrument. By all means, do it on social media or wherever else. And I wonder whether the pulpit is the correct place either. Tell me what you think. Maybe I'm wrong. I just instinctively, just when we're preaching the gospel, you see, we've been given such an immense gift in God's word. We've been given such a blessing to be able to communicate it to others. If I start putting my own feelings on that, my own little rant, my own little hobby horses, again, is it me speaking, or is it the Holy Spirit? Does the Holy Spirit get an opportunity to speak through me? So you see, it's a little bit difficult to navigate, but hopefully those principles help us all to discern the right way forward. And like that, as I mentioned, I've seen some Irish priests preaching as well. Very, again, impressive, very articulate and very clear line of thinking. You couldn't but agree in many ways with all the problems that's going on and the injustices that we're suffering to an extent. Again, just the question mark: is it generating a lot of heat? Is it this is me speaking, or is it? It's a hard call. It's a hard call because I find myself agreeing with what's the sentiment that's being expressed. But again, I'm mindful of the bruised reed and the wavering flame. Isn't that what's in sacred scripture? That there's a time and place for passionate discourse, and it's good, and I again accept that. Mindful too then of those who may be struggling or burdened or find themselves on the periphery in some way. They can manage a certain amount of what Christ teaches and what the church says, but this far and no further, and if there's a risk of alienating. Maybe the other extreme is the other one to avoid too, and maybe I should mention that. We could get too lovey-dovey and too sympathetic and just too nice. And everything could be nice and sweet and just so comfortable and so pleasant and not allow ourselves to be challenged at all, high up or low down. That surely then is obviously, I think clearly, is another extreme to be avoided. And that would be one we would wish to avoid here in our ministry. So you can see how it's a kind of a difficult line to negotiate or to just find your way through, so that we don't come across certainly just too saccharine and just all lovey-dovey, peachy, sort of everything's grand, sure God is good, sure he'll forgive you all, and sure do whatever you want, and sure God is merciful, and sure it'll all be fine. No, it certainly won't, because that negates and denies the role of Christ and why he came to suffer so greatly to help us understand the magnitude of sin and the grievousness and seriousness of sin, and on the other hand, the extent and the measure and the unfathomableness of his great mercy and love. So trying to keep that balance. In God and in heaven there is no sin and no room for sin and no room for ego. Ego is a dangerous little weapon there, a dangerous little affliction. If it's about me, myself, I'm in trouble straight away. It's got to be about the Lord. I must decrease, the Lord must increase. It's only those who grow in humility, really. It's a humble submission to the Lord. Not slavish and not kind of docility for the sake of sweetness. No, there's a kind of a hardness to the saints. They have to be tough. They've got elbows. Only these saints, they've got to be uncompromising in the ways of faith, as we certainly are and seek to be too. But there's a gentle way of doing that. Our Lady was uncompromising in her faith. She was right there at the foot of the cross, where it mattered, on the journey to Calvary, where it mattered. She didn't need to jostle but there was a firmness of purpose there, deep faith and heroic charity. There's our model. And that's why with the Annunciation, the Feast of the Annunciation, our consecration to Jesus through Mary tomorrow, which we will engage with the World Family of Radio Maria, that's what that means. One of the questions asked at the Ignite conference, one of the young men asked, in our invitation in consecration to Our Lady, how are we men expected to be akin or alike? How do we imitate our Blessed Lady? And there it is. She was tough, firm, fast in her faith, resolute in her yes to the cross. There's manly qualities there if you want to seek something to emulate there. Just faithful to the very end. That's again our role here at Radio Maria, and to try to navigate that with the humility and docility and obedience and faith of our Blessed Lady, and at the same time not to compromise nor to head off on an ego trip. Not easy. So I'd love to hear from you. It's an interesting topic to embrace, and this is the call of all faithful Christians and followers of Christ. How do you find that balance in your workaday lives, in the tasks that are put before you? 089 467 2000 to text and WhatsApp us here. info@radiomaria.ie to send an email, and Mary's on the phone downstairs. 014123456. And if you want to get in touch from the north or outside of Ireland, +353 89 467 2000, +353 1 Dublin 41234556. Do please give a call or a text or a WhatsApp, an email, and drop a comment, drop a like, those other things on social media too. That's another wonderful way to get in touch. Or Facebook Messenger is another useful way too. Now, Brendan very kindly has a piece of music hopefully lined up for us that Jeanette sent through to us. It's fitting for tomorrow, and the moment we're going to share together tomorrow will be a beautiful moment at 3 o'clock our time, 4 o'clock Italian time. There's going to be a worldwide rosary from Nazareth. This is uniting with all the radios in the world family of Radio Maria for our consecration to Jesus through Mary of the radio apostolate and ministry throughout the world. There will be millions of listeners. It's such a lovely moment. So I'll be doing the English moderation. I don't think it amounts to very much, except just the English commentary, if you like, on that. But each of the decades will be recited in Latin, again, the universal language of the Church. Many of you, I'm sure, know they are Father, Hail Mary, and Glory be in Latin, but also in Arabic. And I think that's very significant. Of course, from Nazareth, in the Middle East, where Christ himself suffered, died, where he lived, suffered and died, and reaching out to the Middle East indeed in that lovely way. That would be a lovely moment. So now we have a beautiful piece of music. I've heard it before. It's the Our Father in Aramaic, I think it is. And Pope Francis, I think, when he was visiting there, they gathered and sang it for him in their traditional liturgical way. Beautiful piece. So do enjoy listening to this, and we'll be back very shortly. Brendan's attention there next. Catch Brendan's attention here now. It's great fun here. He's got the head down. Yep. Yeah, good to go. Thanks. Now there we are. That's going on for some time further there. It was in Georgia, the country of Georgia. The Pope visited there some time ago, and the Our Father in Aramaic. It is beautiful. That kind of puts goosebumps on you to listen to that beautiful liturgical singing there. Just gorgeous and just. Almost a lament indeed, very fitting for Holy Week coming up and at us very soon. And maybe in that spirit indeed of Holy Week and that lament, it's terrible to read the news in relation to the shootings in the United States. These are awful tragedies. It's one of the outcomes perhaps of having guns so readily available. I suppose they're available here in Ireland too, but they're strictly licensed. We don't have such events happening to the same extent here. So Archbishop Aquila said he's deeply saddened by a mass shooting in northern Colorado early this week and called for conversion of hearts to eradicate violence from society. You know, we're reminded of the horror of violence at the cross and the violence that continues in our world to this day, disregard for life. He says, I've been praying for all those impacted by this senseless act of violence and want to express my spiritual closeness to them. It was Monday that a gunman opened fire at a King Soopers grocery store in Boulder and 10 people were killed. One of the victims was a police officer, Eric Talley, a 51-year-old man who is a Catholic and leaves behind a wife and 7 children, and among the first to respond to the shooting. Very sad indeed. Talley has been described as a man of character and strong faith, a loving father to 7 children, and a husband who cared deeply for his family, a soldier for Christ. Officer Talley regularly stopped by St. Martin de Porres parish in Boulder and participated in events, even though he wasn't a parishioner there. And St. Martin de Porres, the patron of the parish, was someone who experienced tragedy and hardship in life too. So we ask for his intercession in these difficult circumstances, that God will bring good out of this great evil. As the Archbishop said, promising prayers for the Talley family. His funeral will be celebrated next Monday at the Cathedral Basilica of the Immaculate Conception in Denver, in Colorado. A solemn high mass in the extraordinary form as well, according to an announcement that was made there. Police have arrested a 21-year-old, and it seems that this young man was suffering from serious mental illness, paranoia and delusions. Again, just so sad. And I hadn't heard now that there was another shooting as well in Atlanta, where 8 people were killed as well. This is very sad. So Lord, may their souls and the souls of all the faithful departed to the mercy of God rest in peace. Amen. And just a text as well there too, that one of the priests of my own diocese, Father Andrew Carville, has a brother working there. He's a dean in the local parish deanery area of Boulder. So Father Carville will be celebrating at that funeral mass for Mr. Talley as well. So immediately an Irish connection there. These things are just, they fill us with grief really, and it's so sad. And we wonder, again, we're left asking ourselves an awful lot of questions. And our hearts go out to families and victims and their families always. How is it we have come to this? How can we, is anyone safe? It would generate certainly a certain amount of fear and trepidation, as in a great concern. So that's very trying indeed. So very good. Let's keep all these things in prayer, as I say. Let's bring these before the Lord, and let's journey in the light of our faith too. So thanks so much indeed for all your messages and contacts. Thanks for those who are listening in and following us here on YouTube as well, and those who listen back as well. The Chatechesis from yesterday morning was repeated at 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. I don't know what unearthly hour of the night I'm back on air. But a listener very kindly texted in and was very appreciative of the hearing back yesterday's Chatechesis at 2 in the morning. So I was snoring, certainly at that hour of the day. But we're very grateful. It's nice to get the feedback. It's so much good coming into us all the time as well. It's from Brita. She says, thanks for your excellent talk about the darkness that there is out there in secular life versus the light of faith that brings to us, and encouraging the priest, she says there too. May God bless you and all at Radio Maria. She says thanks to Father Vincent Stapleton too for his wonderful testimony to the young people at the Ignite conference. So that's up as podcast there. If you want to look back, or Ignite will have it there too. It's online, easy enough to find as well. So very good. Thanks for the prayer requests coming into us as well. By all means, do send those into us too. So today, Saint McCarthy, the patron saint of Clogher, the Diocese of Clogher, and our new presenter, Father Owen Gorman, who's not new to the microphone by any means, joining us for the breakfast show on Tuesdays. He's from that very diocese of St. McCarthy in Clogher. He died around the year 506, so he's you'd probably call him a patrician saint, or maybe a post-patrician of that generation. And Bishop Duffy has told us what's known of him through CatholicIreland.net. St. McCarthy, a McCarthy, so it's close to my own Irish surname, McCarhig, as opposed to McCarhin. Not sure the exact subtlety of translation maybe for that. McCarthy would be son of Carthy, so it's McCarhin, maybe son of Corhin, Carthin. Maybe it's just a name. He was a convert at any rate, like St. Patrick in his own way, seeking to win converts from paganism. Maybe he fell under the influence of either St. Patrick or St. Patrick's successors. He's said to have gone south from his home in the north to hear Patrick preach. Well, there you are. That's an answer to my query there. He was listening to St. Patrick. And their first meeting took place at Drumlease in County Leitrim. St. Patrick baptised him, and McCarthy became St. Patrick's companion and bodyguard. Okay, I didn't read ahead. I should have. Good. So they were associates. Again, bodyguard. That's interesting. Because of this, I suppose there were a lot of pagan, maybe tribes and chieftains and all these things around, and that survival of the fittest, it mightn't have been the safest country at the time. Because of this, he became known as the strong man of Patrick, Threnar Pádraig. When Patrick became worn out by his labours, McCarthy would carry him on his broad shoulders across rivers and over rough ground. Wow, he must have been a big giant of a man. An ancient life of St. McCarthy tells the story that as Patrick was crossing a stream at the druidic stronghold of Clogher, McCarthy, his strong man, groaned, exclaiming, "Ugh, upon my good word, said Patrick, it has become usual with you now to be making that noise." "I am now old and infirm," said McCarthy, "and all my early companions in mission work you have settled down in their respective churches while I am still travelling." "Found a church, then," said Patrick, "that shall not be too near us at Armagh for familiarity, nor too far from us for communication." And that apparently is how Patrick made McCarthy Bishop of Clogher. There you go. Clogher is Monaghan and I think a couple of counties. I think kind of long, thin diocese there. Does it reach up towards Donegal, Fermanagh, is it? I've got my map to look. I know it covers a couple of counties at least. So McCarthy preached the gospel in Tyrone and Fermanagh. He died in the year 506 from natural causes and is thought to have been buried at Clogher in County Tyrone. There are two cathedrals of the Church of Ireland in the Clogher diocese, one in Clogher village and one in Enniskillen. In post-emancipation times, a great Catholic cathedral designed by architect J.J. McCarthy was built high on a hill above Monaghan town between 1864 and 1892. Now that is interesting. I'd like to visit that cathedral. The same architect designed Cove Cathedral. which is only spectacular, really. It's a lovely setting, of course, too. But the interior is really gorgeous. So that's an interesting. I'll put that on my list of, please God, when things open up again, visit Clonard Cathedral. So the diocese of which St. McCarthy is the patron includes Monaghan, most of counties Fermanagh, and the parts of County Tyrone, Donegal, Louth and Cavan too. Okay, so it does span quite a few counties. Patrick is also reputed to have left a reliquary at the great reliquary called the Great Shrine of St. McCarthy, containing a fragment of the true cross, known as the Dawnach Aragid. It's interesting. Dawnach is Sunday, Aragid is money. I wonder the origin of that one now. And it's in the National Museum of Ireland now. Another place I should visit, because the Book of Kells, is it? No, not the Book of Kells, the Arda Chalice. There must be other interesting artefacts, and it's not so far away from us here. Never been, so there's one for me too. The spirituality of McCarthy is evoked in the crest and motto of the Diocesan Secondary School for Boys on the outskirts of Monaghan town. The crest is a cross and Celtic shield, and underneath the motto of the college, Fortis et Fidelis, Fortis I guess meaning strength and Fidelis meaning faith, it recalls St. Paul's advice, be firm in faith, brave and strong. The words occur in one of the last letters of Father Cornelius Tierney, a former student and priest-teacher in St. McCarthy's, and later a Columban missionary who died a prisoner of communist guerrillas in China in 1931. Yes, Father Cornelius Tierney is one of those extraordinary Columbans, and there's a history to be talked about there another day. So St. McCarthy today, pray for us. Great indeed to celebrate our own local saints. And listen, if I think it's just a nice lesson in history, that if we think we have it hard today, if we think it's tough, if we think it's challenging, just read back some of the lives of the saints. You know, I can't imagine carrying St. Patrick on your shoulders, you know, through bogs and up and down roads and across streams and lakes and whatever as his bodyguard, against thugs along the way. You know, and having to travel on foot, probably for the most part, and go hungry and be tired and subject to the weather, not having the same shelter and comforts that we have now. In a way, it's a doddle. Isn't that the word? It's a doddle. It's a piece of cake. It's a walk in the park. It's a cinch, really, given all the comforts and modern conveniences that we enjoy. Good to look back on these great saints, and did they ever stand up to the challenges of their day? That's our call too. That's the role we have to play as well. So let us take this to heart, you know. Let us realize that now is the time, now is our time, and let's seek to generate more light than heat. Let us seek to be witnesses of the gospel as our Blessed Lady at the foot of the cross. There's our challenge for us this season. And it's a lovely couple of weeks now. So tomorrow we will celebrate with great joy the Annunciation of our Blessed Lady. It's a time for legionaries to make their act of consecration too through their Chatechesis. And here in Radio Maria it coincides too. It's lovely. In fact, the two tie together. We will have our consecration to Jesus through Mary as well. Certainly as part of our Rosary, and I might also include it as part of Holy Mass tomorrow with you as well. So thanks for your company. It's just coming up to 12 o'clock. Do please continue with us. If you're watching on Facebook Live and YouTube, I'll take my leave of you, and I'll be back, please God, tomorrow morning again to have a little bit TV moment with you there. Do again, please like, share, follow, subscribe. Let others know about this gift. Don't be shy about sharing your faith. Don't be shy about sharing the gift of Radio Maria as we seek to be a companion to you and to all, and to be of service to the Church. This radio station belongs to you. It's your own Catholic radio station in your home. Now it's 12 o'clock. If you want to look out to the mixing desk there, we'll allow our angel bells to ring and return with our midday prayer.